So welcome. Today we're going to make ghee. And if we haven't met before, I'm Emily Reed. I think I've met everybody in the Zoom room at least once in my life. So welcome. So today is really how to cook ghee, a little bit about why you might add ghee into your diet any day, but especially as the months get cooler. And then I also want to take some time to answer some questions. I've gotten a lot of questions about the fall Ayurvedic Community Detox program, and ghee features wonderfully in that as well. So for those of you who end up joining that, you will already have your ghee ready to go. So let's start some of the process, and then I'll go through some information as we go. So the first thing is, ideally, you want to use cultured butter. So I have some cultured, you can't see the word cultured on top, but it's from Highland Farm in Lee, Massachusetts, which is literally down the street practically from my house. And this package here is the equivalent of 2 sticks. Usually when I do this, I do a whole pound, which would be 4 sticks of butter for the equivalent. But today I'm just going to do 2. And yes, you can do it with other butter. The cultured butter is just healthier and therefore makes cultured ghee, which is also wonderful. So I'm going to put that in the pan, just like that. It doesn't need to be, it can be cold when you take it out of the fridge, that's fine. And then I'm going to put it on super low heat. So I'm on the smallest burner that I have, and I'm going to put it at like just below medium. And this is going to start the process of melting it. Now, if you wanted to go a little faster, you could absolutely break it up, which I might take a knife and do that. But basically, the hardest part about making ghee is not walking away. Because even though it feels like it starts off slowly, it can, as soon as you walk away, go awry. And so I'm just going to cut one more little section off here. So really, all we're doing is cooking the butter. So while that starts to melt, we can talk. And I'm going to keep the view on that because things do start happening pretty quickly. So let's start with what is ghee. So ghee is sometimes translated as clarified butter, which is a little bit accurate, but also not enough of a description, because clarified butter is like step 1. Ghee is a step above that. And so you want to make sure at the end we have a beautifully clear substance. You see how the butter is cloudy, right? It starts out cloudy. At the end, we're going to have a beautifully clear gold substance. And what we're trying to do is transform the butter into what is essentially the healthiest edible fat for humans. And we'll talk about more about the benefits in a second. But this process is taking the butter and allowing the milk solids, the lactose, to separate, and for the water content to also evaporate. And so you want to end up simmering it. You're not trying to like cook it. You're going to end up simmering it a bit, which is why you want it on like low or medium low heat. And you can see that it's already starting to melt. As it melts, some of the things start to separate, and we'll see that happen a little bit more clearly in a moment. So when you separate the milk solids and let the water evaporate, you end up with this high quality, shelf stable, so you don't have to put it in the refrigerator, oil that is also has a very high smoke point. And so you can use it pretty much anywhere in your cooking. You could use it just put a dollop in like your oatmeal in the morning, for example, and let it melt there. You could use it to stir fry things. You could use it to bake and roast vegetables. You can use it in baked goods, but sometimes, like when you want something like a fluffy pastry, the ghee won't make the dough quite as fluffy, but it will have a similar nutty flavor. So one of the things that is really interesting is that the flavor does change a little bit from butter. But people who don't like some people who don't like the taste of butter don't mind the taste of ghee. Some people really don't like the taste of ghee. I think it tastes like liquid gold, and it has a sweetness to it. It also has a little bit of a nuttiness to it. And so you can start to see here, it's pretty much all melted, and I'm turning it down just a touch because I don't want it to get too hot. But one of the things that's going to start happening, and I'm wearing a mic, so I might bring the mic a little closer to the ghee, because one of the ways that you know this process is working is by not just looking, but listening. And so in a moment, it'll get more exciting from the listening perspective, but as you simmer this, there will be some pops. There will be bubbles that start to form and some popping noises. And that popping noise is something that we're going to be paying attention to know when the ghee is done. So I'm hoping that you can kind of see, there we go, that's a little bit better. You can see how it's melted, and on top, there's almost this like foaminess that's happening, right? And so that's the separation starting to happen. Those are some of the milk solids. And what we want to do is allow those milk solids to cook, and they'll almost be like browned. And when they're heavy enough from the separation and the process, they will float to the bottom. And so at the end, there will be almost none of this like fuzzy stuff on top, and it will be all at the bottom of the pan. One of the challenges of making ghee is making sure you don't walk away, as I said, because if those milk solids end up on the bottom and burn, it will burn and affect your ghee, and you don't want to eat that ghee. You don't want to consume that ghee. Oh, so the popping is starting. Here we go. Can somebody nod just so they hear it? Can you hear it? No? No? Okay. Maybe it only picks up voices. Can you hear my voice though? So we don't get poppy noises, unfortunately, from the microphone. So I'll just explain that it's almost like this little like crackle noise that's happening, and you can start to see some of the bubbles forming, yes? And so those bubbles are kind of popping and crackling. And for right now and in a moment, the crackling is going to get very, very quick, like. And when it starts to slow down, that's when you know you need to watch it carefully because it's getting closer to the end of the process. So it happens fairly quickly here. So I'm going to use a spoon to share. Now, when you're making this, you don't necessarily have to stir it, but once in a while, it's nice to pull away some of those milk solids to see the liquid gold underneath, right? And eventually, so this liquid underneath the foamy solids is still not quite so clear. Like it's still a little cloudy, which tells me that there's still some water content in that, and it's still evaporating, and we're not quite there yet. So we've got a combination of some like clear bubbles on top that are happening, as well as these like white foamy milk solids, and the solids will kind of stick to your spoon when you look at it. So while that keeps going, I'm watching it. I want to mention that one of the reasons why fall in particular is a great time to use a little bit more of the nourishing, denser, heavier oils in your cooking is because then those qualities get imparted into your food. So in the summertime, when you're cooking with maybe coconut oil, that's a very light oil. Ghee is going to be a little heavier. It's also extremely nourishing. Another great choice in the fall and winter is sesame oil. I'm not talking about the toasted sesame oil. I'm talking about just organic sesame oil. And you'll notice that it's yellow and not brown when it's not toasted. So I'm just checking here. We still got some things happening. And ghee is the food that is highest in butyric acid. Butyric acid has been known to, great question, Naomi, I'll get to that in a second. Butyric acid is really, really helpful in weight loss. It's really, really helpful in digestive health and intestinal health. And so consuming ghee in all the different ways possible is one of those things that will help you get some more of that butyric acid into your diet. All right, so now we're really popping. I think I have a feeling you might be able to hear this now. So let me see. Can you hear it? Okay, we're trying. But you can see those big bubbles, right? And the white foamy substance is transforming a bit. So we're getting a little bit closer. And we still have a lot of the white stuff on top. But these crackles are happening very quickly. It's like, and they're very loud. In about a minute or two, we'll have fewer bubbles, smaller bubbles, and less crackling. And that's when you know you want to really pay attention and tune in. Ghee is used in a lot of different ways in Ayurveda, Ayurveda being a closely related science to yoga, one of the oldest continuously practiced healing systems in the world. And it originated in India. And ghee is the main reason why Ayurvedic food is never vegan. Because ghee has such special healing properties that it is a singular food in that sense. There's no replacement for ghee. In fact, some vegans meet Ayurveda and they become geegans, as we call them, because they'll it's the one animal substance that they'll consume because they understand the benefits of it. So hopefully you can see that we're getting maybe fewer bubbles, and definitely the white stuff has fallen away and come down to the bottom of the pan. Now, when I'm shifting here, you can see those solids on the bottom there getting brown. Those are the milk solids. And then we have the liquid gold here that's almost ready. So right now is when I'm trying to make sure that it's not going to burn. So how do I know when it's done? Well, if I'm worried, I'm going to lower the temperature just a little bit. And we're going to wait until a few less crackles. So there's more space between the crackling noises, this popping that's happening with the bubbles. And when I part the bubbles away to the side, I can see clear down to the bottom of the pan where some of those solids, milk solids, are turning brown. And brown is good, burnt is bad. So we're right near the end here. So I'm going to turn it off and let it be. And I had a question from Naomi, like, what's the difference between the store-bought ghee and homemade ghee? So anything that's made in mass production tends to have the qualities of mass production, right? I'll change the view for a second. In Ayurveda, we place really high importance on food that's made with love. And so when something's made for literal like profit, that adds a different quality to the food. Now, it doesn't make it bad necessarily, but the more hands it's changed, that's different energies that are imparted into that substance or that food, right? So that's why when you get your food directly from your farmer, or you're using butter that's from the farm down the street, or if you have You start with whole milk, make your own cultured butter, and then turn that into ghee. It's a whole process that takes a little bit of commitment, but that would be you imparting that love into what you're making. So you can absolutely buy it from the store, but that by itself would be different. What you would want to look for in the store is that it's cultured ghee, because then it's just one step above just regular ghee or clarified butter, and will have the additional health benefits. So I hope that's helpful, Naomi. Let me know. Abby asks, would this work with an electric stove? Absolutely. Absolutely. You would just turn it down, and you'd want to watch it because of the, when it glows and it's on for a while and it turns off, just like here, you want to watch it. So, let's see, any more questions about ghee? One of the other uses is on the body. Like today, I actually cleansed my skin with a ghee and honey balm. You can mix ghee and honey together and just rub it on your skin, and then warm water to rinse. And it's very, very cleansing and healing, and helps you glow. I'm glowing a little bit because I'm in front of the stove right now. Yeah, so how do you pour and store it? We're getting there. So I've just let it sit for a little bit while we're talking, and so that it's not absolutely the hottest when I pour it. But what I have here close by is a clean jar. Now, with 2 sticks of butter or half a pound, these small jam jars will be perfect. You also want a lid, whether it's plastic or metal, totally fine. And then you want a fine mesh sieve or a cheesecloth. If you're doing a whole pound of butter, you'll want like a 16-ounce or quart size jar, so something bigger, or you can always use 2 of the small jars instead. So I'm just showing you that. We're only going to use the one here, and I'm going to pour it in over here. And what's going to happen is this is going to catch any of the little solids that might have gotten away still. And what you're left with here is this gold substance. The lighting is a little bit weird. Now you're going to let this cool uncovered until at least a couple hours. And the next morning, if you're doing this at night, for example, the next morning it will become solid and it will look like this. So it should be this light yellow substance. If it's sort of creamy, dark, like caramel, then you know that it was burnt, and it won't be, and you went a little bit too far. I'm almost a little bit afraid based on the color of these solids in the bottom here, that I might have gotten a little bit too far this time, because we were talking and having a good time. So this will store shelf stable, so you don't have to put it in the refrigerator, but you do want to keep it clean, and I'm using that word on purpose. So anytime you dip a spoon into this to use it, you don't want to double dip. And the reason for that is that any amount of water or liquid getting into the jar can turn the ghee bad. Otherwise, it will pretty much stay like this for, I would use it within 6 months, but it would probably, if we all went on vacation for 10 years and came back, it would probably look exactly like that and be just fine. My solids are not sinking on the electric stove, so it might take a little bit of extra time, Tori. And my next question would be, are you using salted butter? No, okay. Then it should be okay. I'm not sure. Overcooked ghee is not as good as properly cooked ghee, but can you still use the slightly overcooked ghee? Yeah, if it's slightly overcooked, I end up using it more in cooking, where I'm sauteing things, for example. You might not like the flavor in like your oatmeal the same way, but that's a great question, Naomi. And if it's really overcooked, that you'll know Just from the flavor, it won't feel appetizing. And that's an indication that maybe that's not the right choice. Just chalk it up to a good learning lesson. Are there any other questions about the ghee? Is anybody, I know Sophie's interested in the detox, so I can talk a little bit briefly about that. And Tori, keep us posted. It's like slowly, suddenly. Do you have the white foamy stuff on top still? Okay, yeah, you're still good. Yeah. Then it will separate and be bubbles, and that's when you know they're starting to fall down. And that's when you have to pay attention, because I think I was a little distracted today. So the Ayurveda Detox is something I do. It's an online program. I do it in the spring and in the fall. And these are the two junctures or Ritu Sandhis, the seasonal changes that, at least in where we live in the Northeast, for example, it's very challenging for the body. And it's also a great opportunity to reset the system. And so the way that I teach this is maybe not so traditional. Traditionally, you would like go away for a month, live in a mountain and be supervised and go really like gung-ho on some crazy, what they call, it's not crazy, some panchakarma practices. But in order to make it like, hey, you don't have to go away, you're living your life, you're still doing your life, what I do is I don't separate. There are two pieces to the detox. One is a nervous system refresh. And this is things like taking things off of your to-do list for the week, going to bed at the same time, for example, maybe turning off devices 2 hours or more before bed, like these kinds of digital detox, taking a walk at the same time every day, these kind of nervous system helpful things that you might already be doing some of, but maybe doing it on a more regular schedule or with this intention really supports the nervous system at a time when the seasons are shifting and the external environment might really begin to affect your internal environment. So there's practices to support that. And that includes things like restorative yoga, which I'll have for you, and some other movement practices. Another piece of that is Abhyanga, which is self-massage with oil. And these are, I'll list them all out, but you don't have to do all of them. You kind of pick. And if this is your first time doing a detox, maybe you pick one, maybe you pick two. And then in the other column is the digestive reset. And so this could be as simple as like, hey, for 10 days, I'm going to avoid coffee, white sugar, and wheat and oat products. Those are the mucusy kind of things, or general irritants. Generally, we stay away from things like garlic and potatoes and other nightshades and things like that, just so that you're able to keep really easily digested foods for a week. If you want to take it to the level of doing a mono diet, that would be even more helpful for your digestive system, in the sense that you want to give it the same thing roughly every day, something really easy to digest that is also a complete meal. So you're not, the thing that people are surprised by is that you're eating quite a lot on the digestive detox or the digestive reset. It's not that you're withholding any amounts of food, it's just that you're shifting how you look at your food just for the 10 days in order to give your digestive system a break. And part of it is giving it a break and not having all these extra things. If you think about like 500 ingredients and your body has to digest them all versus maybe just 10 ingredients that you're working with, it's going to be a little bit simpler for that 10 days. Simple does not mean lacking in taste, because flavor and spices are a big part of making food digestible. And so we will use spices, particularly Ayurvedic spices like turmeric and mustard seed and cumin and coriander and fennel and things like that, in order to spice the foods that we're eating during the digestive reset. Now, one of the things that people choose to do for the mono diet might be eating khichdi for 5 days. So it's like the first 3 days you're kind of preparing your body and your kitchen. And then the up to 5 days, you might choose to do a mono diet. And then the last 2 days, you're kind of reintegrating some of the things to get ready for like your normal fall seasonal foods. And so the mono diet could be one day. Some people choose to do 2 or 3. Some people think they're going to do 5. And if it's their first time, they might do 2 or 3 because they don't want to do khichdi for 5 days, which is also fine. But I found over the years that for some people, khichdi, which is a mix of rice and mung beans, can be really helpful because it's a very complete, simple meal. But for some people, it doesn't work or they get tired of the spices. And so I've prepared a bunch of, in the manual that you'll get, there's a bunch of different recipes that are sort of alternatives or things that you can supplement if you want to just do khichdi one meal a day. And then you're doing like rice and vegetables and chicken, for example, another part of the day. One of the reasons for doing the mono diet or just simplifying your diet, if you want to think of it that way, is not only to give your digestive system a break, but also doing these practices together with the nervous system practices helps boost your Agni, which is your digestive fire. And in order to like clear out any potentially stored up undigested gunk, which we call ama, which can happen, we want to boost the digestive fire so that it clears things out. So you're not, I'm not saying like a purge or anything like that. My mudra is disorienting potentially, or a little bit not what I mean, but just you want to be able to burn some of the ama or undigested gunk that might be caught up in your system. Now, how do you know if you have ama? Well, one of the ways that you might know is sticking out your tongue, and there might be a white film. Some of you might already be doing tongue scraping, but that's one of the practices that we encouraged, or that I encouraged during the reset and the detox. Another is if you're kind of feeling sluggish, and this can happen especially as the seasons change. If we don't shift some of our foods to naturally help us adjust to the changing temperatures, sometimes we're still eating foods like ice cream. I'm picking on ice cream. Today was a good day for ice cream because it was hot, but like something like ice cream on a cold day might be harder for your body to digest. And so you may not have fully digested that, and things can get a little gunked up. So fogginess in the brain, feeling a little lethargic. If you have trouble digesting food, that can be an indication. But really, it's like the 10-day detox. Somebody said last time I did it with them that it's like an Ayurvedic boot camp, because not only are you immersed in some of these practices, but you're also learning a lot. I add a lot of education through the daily emails about like what the process is that's happening inside. And so I find that people really enjoy that part too. It's all meant to be done while you're still doing your life. So you don't have to like put your life on hold. One of the things that can feel overwhelming to people is the amount of cooking that they're doing if they're not used to cooking for themselves, or if they live alone, or just it's you and a partner, for example. And so there are ways that you can like shortcut. I'm a big shortcut person. Having an Instapot is super helpful. If you don't already have one, I highly recommend investing in it, because you might be able to just make a pot of something, have it for your 2 or 3 meals a day. And really, even if the only thing you change for 10 days is no snacking and only eating nourishing meals, whenever you're hungry, that is life-changing for some people. And it's amazing. We don't really notice how much the sort of in-between habitual things that we do affect us and affect our energy levels until we maybe shift and change. And so even just being in the process of like doing an intentional shift of your habits can be really life-giving and life-changing. And then, this is not a forever diet. This is like 10 days with a purpose. And then you transition into, nourishing seasonal meals, which include things like garlic and all the things that maybe we were, avoiding or reducing just temporarily, so that there wasn't going to add more irritation or challenge to the digestive system. So I've been talking a lot and I want to open it up for questions. I also know that we're right at 8 o'clock time. So if you have to leave, that's fine. But please feel free to unmute yourself or pop into the chat. Has anybody ever done an Ayurvedic detox kind of reset before? Okay. It's not a cleanse, which is why I don't call it that. Ayurveda does use cleanses, but they tend to be for situations where health is extremely compromised. And so you like have to stop eating for a certain period of time in order to support whatever's going to happen next. But that is always done under like major supervision. Tends to be in like a place where you go and do this. And so it's not a cleanse. It's not drinking just juice. You're eating a lot. You're eating a lot more food than you might think, and supporting and nourishing yourself too. Yeah, you're welcome, Abby. Did I see you have a question, Naomi, or did I make that up? Did I get to all your questions? You're welcome, Sophie. So the detox starts October 26th, and I'll open registration around the 16th. But because you all are here, I'll send you an email with a coupon code for 20% off. Normally it's $189 for everything. You get some live calls with me to troubleshoot things. You get the community aspect, which is really, really helpful for people. And the manual, lots of resources, everything is printable, so you can keep the manual and all the recipes for even afterwards. And even though this detox is for the 10 days, some people like to incorporate some of the recipes into their fall menus going forward. So it's actually kind of fun if you enjoy cooking and exploring nourishing foods. Yes, Naomi.
I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. You were unmuted, so I'm just checking.
Well, I was going to say, when you asked before that you thought I had a question, or did you make it up? I was trying to unmute myself to say, yeah, you made it up, but that's okay.
Oh. Well, nice to be with you all. Tori, how did you do with your ghee?
It looked a little caramel colored. It suddenly there were solids in the bottom that were brown, but there was still a lot of the foam on top. So I stopped and I strained it, and it's, we'll see what it looks like.
Okay, see what it looks like tomorrow. But yeah, that's the one little like nuance is when you see the solids at the bottom and they're caramel colored, but not dark yet. That's a good indication to like turn things off and let it be and let the
It's
rest
hard
kind
with
of settle.
electric. Yeah, it's hard to keep
Yeah,
the
because you have to
temperature
like turn it on
controlled.
and off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just sort of
I hear you.
fluctuates. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be the pan too. Like if you have a pan where the butter isn't as spread out, right?
It was pretty. I
Um,
only did 2 sticks like you, and a half pound, and the pan is nice and flat and has a real heavy bottom. So I think that was a good pan for this,
okay.
but
Yeah, because if
it's
it's
the stove.
too big of a pan and too little, it'll happen too fast, right? So I think that's what
Okay.
happened. I think that's what happened to me tonight because normally I do a pound, and so I was doing
Okay.
half, and so it was too little liquid for the amount of like space that I had given it.
Okay. So
So,
does the foam usually stay on the top? Because I was expecting the foam to disappear.
so there might be a little bit of not as
Yeah.
much. So that initial substance when it's starting to
Yeah.
separate is more of like a thick,
Yeah.
you know, creamy,
Yeah.
foamy stuff, but then it turns into more bubbles. You might
Yeah.
have a few bubbles at the end, and that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question, though. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
And it's all about experimenting. Usually my next batch after a burnt batch, I haven't burnt a batch in a while, but the next batch, I'm like right on it. Thanks for cooking with me, Tori. Oh, you're welcome. Is there a daily yoga practice with the reset that you lead? Yeah, so it's not always live. There are going to be 4 live calls, and that's mostly dedicated to some Q&A because people tend to have a lot of questions. Um, and there will be 1 live practice together, like at a specific time when people can join in if they're able to live. But then I'll also have, I think it's 2 recordings, 1 restorative practice and another more moderate practice, because it's okay to go, you want to actually sweat a little bit every day. That would be turning on the Agni again. But you don't want it to be such a crazy workout, right? So you're dialing back, like if you're used to, X level of intensity for your exercise, you're going to go half that during the week of the detox, if not less, right? So there'll be a more exciting practice, more moderate practice, but then also a restorative practice. Great question. Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will send out the recording for this. I'll also send you the instructions, like in a PDF, for how to make the ghee, in case that's helpful. Sometimes the visual is nice instead of just the video. And if you try it, let me know how it turns out. And if you decide, you know what, I don't want to burn my ghee, I'm just going to buy it at the store, that's okay too. Just look out for some really high quality. Like High Lawn Farm, where I got the butter, they actually make cultured ghee as well. So like I could have bought it, but I like to make my own. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for
Thanks
spending
a
some
lot.
time in the kitchen, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Have a good rest of the evening.
Bye, Naomi. Bye, Susan.
Bye.
Thanks, Tori.
Bye-bye.
Bye, SDS, whoever that is. Bye, Susan.